ride, teach, inspire. This is the Dropping Next podcast, brought to you by the Canadian Association of Snowboard Instructors. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dropping Next podcast. I'm Rob Whalen alongside Jeff Chandler and Genevieve Piloteau for episode number 12. We've got a pretty killer episode on deck for you today with a heavy hitter from our industry, and we're going to nerd into a bunch of topics around gear, the state of the industry, technique, online presence, and a whole lot of other stuff. It's going to be a doozy. Just before we jump into it, I just want to send a huge thank you to everybody who's been following along on this Dropping Next adventure so far, especially now as we sort of navigate into the off season and maybe snowboarding is not at the forefront of your mind every day like it is for us here in the Cassie office. We don't sleep on snowboarding. It's kind of present for us every day. So we're just going to keep trying to bring you content to keep you stoked all year long. We've got some great stuff coming down the pipe through the summer, so be sure to stay tuned. But let's get after it here. Jen, if you want to introduce our guest, that would be sick.
Perfect. Hi, everyone. Today, we have a guest named Lars Horstmann, and he's originally from Europe and now calling Fernie, British Columbia, home. He also is the creator behind Justaride YouTube channel. You may have heard of it, where more than 20,000 subscribers tune in for thoughtful, in-depth snowboarding content. He also built a strong community, over 8,500 followers on Instagram, sharing his passion for riding, gear, and mountain culture. As a Stranda snowboard ambassador, Lars is known for his technical knowledge, carving expertise, and authentic approach to snowboarding. So it's really an honor to have you on this show. Thank you for accepting the invitation. And I suggest we dive into your story and what keeps you chasing turns after all these years.
Thanks. Wow, that's amazing. I'm the one who's honored, to be honest. I think it's huge that you are inviting people on here that aren't actual Cassie members. And, like it shows an openness to other thoughts or approaches. And I think that's super cool.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, well, following along your content that you post, there's a lot of parallels in what we do and what you're talking about. So I think that this is going to be a really fruitful conversation. I know I'm personally invested in digging into some of these topics, and Jen and I were talking offline beforehand on a similar note. So yeah, let's get into it. I think, just to paint the picture for the listeners, it would be great to hear a little bit about your backstory. So obviously from your accent, we know you're not from Fernie originally. So tell us a little bit about where you started and how you ended up where you are now.
I'll try to keep that short. So I am German. And I grew up in a part of Germany that has no mountains anywhere near. So my parents put me on skis when I was 5. That was in 1983. So I'm 48. We had to travel, right? Like all the way to Austria. It would be 8-9 hour drives. And we always did that in the springtime. And I absolutely loved it. So I remember days when we would be leaving and it's Bluebird and I'm looking out of the car, like out of the window up the mountains, and I'd be crying like we are going home. And I'm like devastated being 7 or something, So I had this draw to mountains pretty early on. And then I skied for about 11 years. So skip forward when I count the 83 winter, I think the spring of 93 is when I started snowboarding. It might have been 92, but it's irrelevant. Heyday, right? Like in Europe, I feel like it had only arrived, as in I had seen over the past 2 years, there's people sliding on these things around like that. What is happening? Because that was cool. Like the first person I saw sliding sideways was on a swing bow. Do you guys know a swing bow?
No, I think you
I'm
should
not sure.
expand with it.
So it's think of 2 short skis with a parabolic side cut. And on top of it is like with a bit of a kind of connection device, is like a plate, like a deck, like a skate deck. And you're standing on this deck that is mounted to 2 skis. And when you tilt it onto the toes or heels, the skis do this. So the guy who had invented this, Fuzzy Garhammer in Switzerland, he actually invented parabolic skis without knowing.
Wow. Whoa, that's incredible.
And the first time I saw someone ride sideways was some dude coming down the mountain on one of those. And I was like, this is what I'm going to do. Didn't quite turn into swingbow. That never caught on. But anyways, so early days, and the cool thing was snowboarding. And I was already skateboarding. And so I pestered my parents to rent me a snowboard, and they eventually gave in. Rented me a snowboard, and I'm forever grateful because here I am. and I come from a family with basically no money. My parents scraped together the coins to make this ski holiday happen, and therefore we did not go on holidays in the summer. That was the thing. And I'm mentioning this because many of my decisions later in life are basically based on the fact that I didn't have money. And so, you know, you start figuring things out and make things happen, like becoming an instructor. Well, that's great because you can earn money and you're still snowboarding, right? Like, so a lot of those things were motivated by how can I make things happen without money? This is difficult. So basically, they wanted to rent me a board, but they didn't want to buy me lessons. And of course, that's, as we all know now, that's not a good idea. And what I did is, like, for the first 3 days of this 93 holiday, I observed the snowboard school. And I was like, what are they doing? They're going up, they're walking up the mountain, and then they're side slipping, and then they're walking up the mountain again. That is so dumb. Those people are all totally exhausted from walking up the hill. I'm just going to get on the lift. And then I'm going to slide all the way down like they do. That was adventurous. But by lunchtime, I was sliding and doing turns heavily on the back foot with not very much control, which over the next few days evolved into something like snowboarding. But yeah, that's how my snowboard career started.
I'm glad that's where you went with the watching the snowboard lessons, because that kind of mirrors my experience too. I can remember, you know, like renting the board, no lesson, and then just turning myself into a human fly swatter all the way down.
Correct.
The first couple days, right? Like, just, yeah.
It was scary
for sure.
Catching the edges all over the place. Yeah.
I did the exact same thing on my brother's board that was way too big for me, with plate bindings on it and ski boots.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Same here.
And look at us now.
Yeah.
I was in ski boots. The first day was on some weird Atomic board, hardly any side cut, actually labeled Atomic. It's before Atomic went and turned the name into Oxygen snowboards, which they kept through the 90s, and then they turned it back into Atomic when they went freestyle.
Right.
But through the 90s, the Oxygen boards, which is what I then had on day 3, they were like asymmetrical free carve, or like 175 race planks, or super stiff border cross boards. Everything was like, because it's Atomic, right? Like, it's a ski race brand technically. So they produced all that stuff in the town where we went on holidays. This is Flachau in Austria, and around Salzburg, where the Atomic factory is. So I was on an asymmetrical free carve board, the Oxygen XE52, with Fritchie plate bindings in ski boots. Terrible.
Nice.
Yeah, a great way to make beginner turns. Yeah. So from there, you obviously developed some skill and know-how, and I read up a little bit about you as much as I could, and I see that you have an ISIA certification and taught snowboarding for a number of years.
Yeah, so the journey continued as a tourist, right? Like once a year, 2 weeks snowboarding, And I found that an absolute torture. Like, I remember I cried a lot over snowboarding because I couldn't have it. I remember days waking up in the summer from a dream where I was completely realistically snowboarding, like so real that I was shocked to wake up in my room. Looking at the wall where I had parked that Oxygen snowboard and starting the morning crying with like, oh my God, it's August. This is 7 months till we go for 2 bloody weeks. I'm not going to make it type thing. This is real. So my sister set the path there because she used to work in childcare back home, and at some point decided it's a good idea to leave Germany and become a ski instructor and work with children in the ski school instead of in a boring industrial place in the middle of Germany. So she set the path, and I followed. Like, I eventually, after doing a bunch of other things, you know, like early 20s, when people tell you to grow up and pick a job and do something real with your time. Of course, I tried to get into some jobs and stuff, and education, right? And this is when things started to turn against me, as in, oh, if I step into the school program, the holidays are not falling into a good time at all. Plus, I won't have money for the next 2 years. I got to do something. And my sister was already an instructor. So I basically, 2 years, no snowboarding at all. And then coming out of that school, I was like, yeah, I deserve this. And went and visited my sister for like a half a season. And she made it happen that I was allowed to join the instructor trainings. And that was just flat out amazing. Like, I had no background. They told me right away that I'm a pretty good snowboarder. So I was doing something right, but I had no idea about it. And they were happy to have me there. And that experience, because I'm by nature a bit of a nerdy person. Like, I do like really understanding something. Like, I feel like, you know, the question why has brought us to where we are as a species.
Yeah.
So if you just tell me, well, that's how that works, there's a good chance that I'll go home and be like, okay, how does that make sense? And I'll try to dissect it. And of course, in snowboard instructor trainings, you're like in the midst of that, right? Like, that's what it's all about, to understand what we're doing and why and who for. And after that season there, I had gotten an idea of, like, my sister was in a ski school that was, the snowboard side was led by a World Cup racer who happened to also coach his sister for the 2002 Olympics, I believe. So he was like highly educated snowboarder. He wrote the whole manual for the Salzburg Association. Like, within Austria, it's like in Canada, there's the Ontario people and the BC people and blah, blah, blah. So the region that he wrote the stuff for was Salzburg. And that's pretty epic to have the coach who wrote the instructor manual for the region as your daily person to talk to. And he deeply, deeply inspired me, because, like, as much as freestyle, this is early 2000s now, like 2000 or 2001. As much as freestyle was totally getting huge and there were parks coming up slowly but surely, the development was later than in North America, clearly. Like, park landscape only evolved late 90s, early 2000s. So that whole team was very much turns inspired, right? He put a lot of emphasis on teaching how to turn and to turn well. And to the degree of, you know, like, we do a training on the night slope, and he has people go down one by one, obviously trying to ride fairly clean turns, and then would have us walk back up the hill to dissect the time we take at our edge change, right? Like, he would dive deeply into this whole thing of, like, speed down the run happens between the turns type thing, you know, like quick edge changes, early edge control, blah, blah, blah. And this just flat out, the depth of this just blew my mind, right? And watching him do what he did, it was just a piece of art. So he really sparked this flame for me to become a rather riding focused snowboarder than a trick focused snowboarder. I did have my time, you know, hitting parks and big jumps. I always hated rails, but like around that time, I did a lot of park stuff and I enjoyed it, but I never became any good at it. You know, I still like big air, like and cliffs and in free riding and popping a method or whatever, but I've never been a spinner. I've never, well, I did have my backflip era, but I never went cork or whatever, you know, like I never went down that road. Yeah, and then basically became an instructor. They offered instructor courses for students at a lower rate, which was awesome, in the summer on a glacier. So right after this experience there, I signed up for instructor course level 1 in June on a glacier, and passed that. Yeah, and then I was in and hooked. And in Austria, this is maybe cool for some of the listeners to hear. The systems are set up a little different from North America. So you can get into ski guiding or snowboard guiding out of a full cert Austrian instructor qualification, pretty much straight up, because the qualification includes a fairly in-depth avalanche class. And I was very early on infected by the idea of like riding crazy lines and going free riding and climbing up mountains and, you know, finding steep stuff. But I also, being in Europe where everything off-piste is at your own risk, see you later, if you want to die today, go ahead. I was scared, right? So like the idea of, if I don't know what I'm doing, I can't go there, was very strong. So to me, the goal, again, speaking of motivations, because I didn't know whether I'd be a good instructor or a good teacher or whatever, right? Like it was just like, oh, cool, it gets me to snowboard and actually earn some money with it. This is great. Mm-hmm. And then when this avalanche thing came on the map, as in, this is going to be part of your future if you keep going, I was like, yes, let's go. Like, and then I did my Landeslehrer, which is, I want to say content-wise, is probably something like a level 3 in Canada. There's only 3 levels in Austria, rather than 4 in Canada. So the level 1, I feel like, is kind of a combination of 1 and 2 in Kasi. And then the level 2 that I did is kind of like a 3. And then you only finish that level with the Avalanche class, which is a full week. And in case any one of you guys has done it, like I've done my AviOps in Canada, like the Operations 1. And the class in Austria, to be a level 2 instructor, had a lot of content of the Operations level 1 in Canada, which is quite, like, I was blown away how deeply I had actually already gone into avalanche science, only to be an instructor. And then I stopped climbing up the ladder. I didn't really have interest in becoming a full cert. So because the avalanche class makes it so you have an ISIA qualification and you can teach all over the world. You don't have to be full cert. So I basically stopped 1 level below full cert, which is quite the deal in Austria. Like you have to go to a university and learn about, as in like 4 courses for a few weeks. You learn about biomechanics, you write tests, and it's pretty wild. And it costs a lot of money. And I was like, screw this, again, back to the money thing, right? Like, I was like, whatever, sure, I'll be a better rider. I'll learn more things, but it's not really gonna change much, you know? I'm just gonna stay here and see where things go. And yeah, that's what I did. And then taught in Switzerland and Austria, a tiny bit in New Zealand.
That's kind of a wild story and an answer I wasn't totally expecting, because I was kind of hoping to lead into some nerdy equipment talk for instructors within Cassie, but we don't require them to have beacon shovel probe to teach beginners.
No, that's not. It's not a. This has nothing to do with the teaching. Their system simply considers, and maybe that is part of the environment we're in Europe, as in there's no ski patrol making everything nice and safe. That they tell you, because there is such a thing as, they call it a variant, which is like a run that is quite often visible from a groomer. That is, you get there by like a short hike, and then you have some face that you can go down, and it's not patrolled. So you're not doing that when the conditions don't allow for it. But if the conditions allow for it at a certain level, like with my level, I could have taken people there. I could have gone with people. I wouldn't be allowed to walk uphill, but if it's accessible downhill, I can go and ride that with people. And I think that is the reason why they say, well, if that's the case, if we want to offer this kind of terrain to guests, the instructor needs to be reasonably solid with his understanding of what's going on here. And mostly those variant things that, like, I don't think people get in trouble on those runs very often. It's nothing crazy. But it's off-piste. What you have here all over the country and all over every resort as patrolled terrain, right? Which is awesome. But also, of course, the downside is it's tracked out in a minute. And in Europe, that's not the case. Like in Switzerland, later on, when I would ride like 130, 140 days a season, and half of those days I would be like, sick, I don't have work today, let's go. Like, I would not ever go to the mountain without a backpack. And I would hop on the bus, jump on the gondola, mostly already meet someone in the gondola or at the mountain restaurant, and formed this crew, people from Argentina, a vocal ski pro was among those guys, some Italian guys. We were like this posse, and we would ride like rowdy stuff all the time, and everybody fully equipped, doing what they're doing. And it dumps, and you do that for a full week every day, where here it's an hour and it's done.
It's gone, yeah.
So that's a very different culture, right? So hence, I think the Austrians put the emphasis at some point to a degree on, like, we need to give these guys some backcountry education, which is awesome.
Yeah, it's always interesting to me to compare the differences in instructor training programs around the world. And in general, the European certification systems are more, I would say, more comprehensive or holistic in some of those skills. And I've had the opportunity to attend like the Interski event over the years many times, and speaking to instructors from around the world, it's always very cool to hear how an entry-level instructor program in Europe might incorporate skills around marketing and sales, or business related skills, or more in-depth avalanche training, like you said, and first aid training and stuff. And it's a product of the environment, right? And the job that the instructors are doing and where they're taking guests in those places. So it's always interesting to compare. Yeah.
But like what Rob was saying, I'm totally down to talk gear stuff for instructors, because I do, through the work in the shop for 12 years, I had that a lot, right? I was like, we have Nonstop as a program in Fernie. So these people become instructors. They come here and they have nothing, or the gear is wrong, and they want something else. So I've been involved with that kind of giving advice for a long time. So I'm happy to talk about that.
Yeah, let's dig into that a little bit. Like, obviously you have a pretty good sense of our levels and the type of instructors that we have and the range of lessons that they're giving. What are some considerations that you're thinking about in the shop when people come and see you and say, hey, I'm an instructor and I'm teaching these kind of lessons, what should I be on?
Yeah, so like I personally strongly believe, regarding anything snowboarding, it's not in the first place the gear. I'm trying to hammer this home all the time. And, you know, when you think of freestyle, nobody has ever come to you saying, I'm working on my triple cork, but I'm constantly face planting. I think I need a better board.
Right.
Like, but with a deep, clean heel turn, it's 100% the board. I need a better
Right.
carving board because I get heel edge chatter, and that's the board.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and my answer to that is always, well, do you get the chatter on the toe side? No. Well, is your board symmetrical? Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So the idea of I need a particular thing. Yes. Eventually, if you are in a situation where your life and your situation like justifies building a quiver, I think 100% build a quiver, because it's just silly to live in Fernie and ride a deep pow day on a twin. That would just be silly. But because I don't get what I should be getting out of the day, right? Like, but that's not the first thing. And the people who are mostly teaching, I believe they should not go overly specific in anything. Like, like stick to that average, maybe directional twin. I'm not necessarily a fan of true twins, because when you think about, well, if you want to talk about boards, if you think about the spectrum, there's nothing more twin than a twin, right? So the twin is an extreme. The twin on a spectrum, on a scale of race board to twin, well, there's a race board and there's a twin.
Mm-hmm.
But we've celebrated the twin for like 20 years as the snowboard, which is really odd when you think of it as an extreme.
Right.
Right. Like it's you can't really, that doesn't exist anywhere else, that an extreme is the benchmark. So in
That's
my
true.
head,
Yeah.
the smarter choice is something mildly directional. And of course there's many different definitions of a directional twin. It's kind of this gray zone phrase, right? But you could go with a board that has a twin flex, like nose and tail, same stiffness. That's a big part of riding switch well. If your tail is super stiff, that might feel awkward. Non-tapered or only very mildly tapered, slightly longer nose, very mildly set back, like a centimeter or 2 centimeters, nothing crazy.
Mm-hmm.
There's lots of boards like that out there. You know, like I'd say, like you could even go with something, I don't know, up to maybe 8 mil taper, 6 to 8 mil taper, that still rides switch pretty darn comfortably. I feel like in regards to twin versus directional, that's kind of where you want to be as an instructor, because then you don't have to think about this, right? You don't know what group you'll be getting that day, or the private lesson, or the conditions where this guy wants to go to. Oh, is it actually that great today? Right? Like, or maybe it's greater than you were expecting, and now you're on your twin and you have to ride powder. Like, or vice versa, right? You're on your Korua Dart Swallowtail and the guy wants to hit rails. Well, fun times. So
Yeah.
As an instructor, you should be thinking you're the service person, right? It's not about you. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you need to set yourself up so that you can produce success for the client. And if you are on something stupid extreme, well, that's just not a good idea, in my opinion. And that goes across the board. I would not go, I'm preaching performance fit for snowboard boots. I would not ride a performance fit as an instructor. I'd go half a size up. Like, I'd go comfort fit, because what I'm experiencing, where in the lift line, I'm clearly feeling the end of my boot, not with pressure, but annoying enough to be like, I stomp my heel every now and then, and slide the foot back a little. It doesn't hurt, but it's not comfortable. Well, an instructor has to wear the boots for like what, a 6-7 hour day in the boot, 6 hours probably, realistically, sometimes 8. You don't want to be in that fit. And a comfort fit that half size bigger is not going to kill a ton of performance, which you don't really have to deliver anyways, right? Like, you're not riding at your peak for 6 hours in a beginner lesson or an advanced kind of lesson, right? Hopefully that's not your peak. So you
Hopefully
don't you don't really, like, don't go crazy on stiff boots and on super tight fitting performance boots and carbon high backs, right? Like, I feel like chill, like middle of the road, moderate shapes, moderate stiffnesses. It needs to fit you, right? It needs to be functional. Don't get on a board that is way too narrow or way too wide. Like, things just need to work, and I'd keep it simple, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
Well, that's really good advice. I would definitely agree with all of that. And it sounds to me like you're, well, I kind of have a hunch that you're a quiver guy, and you mentioned it a little bit earlier. The instructor fit that you were just describing should be part of our quiver.
Exactly. Like, I have a board that if I had to or wanted to, I could teach on perfectly. Like, I wouldn't even think about which board to grab. It would be that board. And and that board would be a little bit leaning towards my style. Like, as in, you know, a 9 meter side cut radius is not necessarily ideal, because that's a rather large radius. I don't think it's silly big, but in the landscape of boards that are offered to the majority of people, 9 meters is fairly large. But I know that, right? I know that, and I know how to handle that, and I would make that work. Like, I wouldn't necessarily go and buy something specifically for that when I'm only teaching, you know, like, what, a handful of days a year. So I would be like, that's my thing. I'll make that work. I understand the board, and I understand how I have to manipulate it to make that work in this situation. So, you know, but otherwise, I'd clearly, in my quiver, if I was an active instructor, I'd clearly have a board that is totally mellow, nothing stupid expensive. You know, people step on your board. They in beginner lessons, edges are gonna wreck your top sheet. You don't need a $900 snowboard to go through that every day. I'd kind of play it humble. You know, it's also a nice thing for your clients to see, because you're a role model, right? Like, if you can shine on something that isn't perfect and the most expensive, then you don't plant the idea that they can only shine on something that is perfect and the most expensive.
We walk a fine line between intimidation and inspiring. So I think what you were saying there, you know, with that type of board, you can kind of do both, right?
Like you said earlier, it really comes down to, you know, instructors, obviously, as we know, are very technique driven and improving their skills. And, you know, if they can work on skill improvement on something that's kind of middle of the road equipment wise, then that's ultimately, it's going to serve them down the road as well. Right. So, you know, so if, for example, like improving carving skills or that getting that clean heel side, or if they're able to do that on that all around sort of teaching board, then I view it as that puts them further ahead.
For 100%. Like, I get this question, of course, through the YouTube thing. I get this all the time, right? Like, these gear questions are the number one questions. What board should I get? And of course, I don't know that. I don't know the person.
Yeah.
Right? I can give them a good guideline, but that's literally it. And I don't want to say like the peak of it, but I've reached the level of carving from which I then only improved mildly over the last years on gear that is totally middle of the road. Like when I kind of cracked the code for my heel turn, that was probably like 8 years ago, which is like when I was 40. And like things just fell into place. And I was like, wow, I can do this anywhere. It doesn't matter whether it's steep, whether it's narrow. The board doesn't even matter. It just, I know what to do. This is like crazy. I'm just sitting in this, and I've finally understood the timing, because I feel like that's the key to the kingdom. Speaking of carving, like the timing of all the things you need to do is so bloody important, and it's so hard to teach because it's a feeling thing. And it changes with your speed, with your radius, with your terrain, with the conditions. The timing is like this magical little sprinkle that you need to just refine. And I didn't do that on, like Stranda offers some boards with a huge effective edge, like a cheater with a 143 effective edge or whatever, where you go like, well, yeah, of course he's carving, he's on a cheater. I didn't learn this on a cheater. Like I can do that on a K2 party platter, 150, no camber. Like it doesn't matter at a point. And that is way, way cooler to experience that than to reflect and be like, yeah, I can't do that today. I'm on the wrong board.
Yeah.
So I don't want to plant that seed ever. Even as an ambassador for Stranda, like I've told many people to not buy a Stranda. It's like, oh, this doesn't sound like this would serve you right. Like that, because it's true. It's not for everyone.
I think those things are important details to recognize as people are growing into their snowboarding journey, whatever like is their preference and what they like to ride and stuff. Like those are really good conscious point to keep in mind when it comes for them to choose a setup. I'm going to switch topic a little bit here. I would like to ask you questions about teaching beginner lessons as it relates to for the experienced instructors. What is the value of teaching beginner lessons for experienced instructors for you?
That's a great question. I like talking about this. I think that, so there's different perspectives to this, right? Like the one thing is, what of course is very satisfying is when you as an instructor are contributing to success, right? When the client leaves and you feel like, oh God, he really didn't learn a thing today. Yeah, of course you can blame it on the client and be like, well, they're just stupid. But ideally you ask yourself, maybe I didn't do that well. Like, what did I do wrong that he didn't get this? Why did I not reach this person to make the turn this way or whatever, or to implement this new movement, whatever it is? And in a beginner lesson, as much as there have been lessons in my life that were not that successful, and you can partially say if someone is completely zero athletic and can barely move without a snowboard on their feet, it's going to be challenging, and those people exist. So yeah, sometimes, it's like, well, that was tough and I did what I could. But for the most part, a beginner lesson has much quicker progression than an advanced lesson. And being part of that, I find extremely satisfying. And then the other thing too is, let's consider that the average snowboarder rides 10 days a year. If you that's an industry stat, apparently that's what it is. Like your average guy is a tourist snowboarder and they don't ride like we do. And you have someone who's really diligent with this and wants to learn, and they take a lesson every year, which is super rare. How much progress do you think can you promote or be a part of in that 3 days that you ride with them? Given they only have another few days and then they go home for a year. So the progress, first of all, the progress becomes smaller and smaller, as I think all of us have seen in our own lives. Like once you reach, the brown belt, getting to the black belt is actually quite a while. where going from blue to red was like in a month. So the same thing happens there. And you are not giving the person the same kind of thing. When you have a beginner and they leave your class and they go, oh my God, snowboarding is awesome. I'm going to do this again next year. You've given them something for their lives. And you need to think, like, just take, whether I'm a good example or not, I don't know, but just take this channel thing that I started and imagine maybe I was once in a lesson where somebody sparked that fire in me. And now I have a YouTube channel some 30 years later, and I talk about snowboarding. So you could make a giant difference in someone's life through a beginner lesson, where in an advanced lesson, of course, the people are going to be grateful if they improved with you, but they're already snowboarding, you know? It's a very different thing. And therefore, I think beginner lessons, in the way they are being dealt with in ski schools and also among instructors, are vastly misunderstood or misinterpreted. To me, the idea that a low-level instructor, or no, let's put it this way, that a high-level instructor gets the higher level lessons, well, that's kind of obvious, but they don't teach beginners anymore type thing. And that the beginner teacher or instructor is portrayed as like a lower kind of value instructor. I think that's completely backwards. First of all, messing up a beginner lesson is very easy. And it takes, in my opinion, the Italians, as much as I understand the difficulty of the system, the Italians are doing something amazing. If you are not a maestro de ski, which is ninja, level 4, then you are not an instructor. They don't have level 1, 2, 3, 4. Like, you go through this whole thing, and then you are the top dog, and then you're an instructor. And then this discussion is irrelevant.
Right. Yeah.
And I think you are a better instructor for a beginner when you yourself actually understand the full picture. Like when, so, and I can give you an example, which you may actually want to talk about anyways. I've, having been here in Fernie and riding with or around non-stoppers and other people that have come to their level 2 or whatever, I've sometimes been in situations, and also through YouTube, where people who are instructors of a lower level, let's say level 2, they have a certain amount of knowledge and a certain vocabulary and terminology and methodology and whatnot, that we know reflects their level, right? We know that some of those things are actually going to change a little bit in level 3 and 4. As much as the fundamentals are the same, the riding, and like level 2, you're part of a progression, right? Level 4, you're starting to peak, kind of. So you have conversations with people. If I give you an example, a friend of mine, we are free riding here in Fernie, steep terrain, narrow chutes, and he's like, damn, I'm always getting stuck on my toe side, blah, blah, blah. And I'm watching him, and he's like fully turning his upper body all the way through the turn. And basically, like, if this is your chute, he would come around and like fully sideways face into the bank, right? And get stuck. And I'm like, well, you need to start applying some upper lower body separation. You don't bring your front shoulder all the way through this turn and finish that turn the way you do on a groomer. You need to keep your eye down the fall line and move underneath you. Like, do you guys understand what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
Like, and he said, oh, but that's counter rotation. Well, that's wrong.
Right.
Like, I've been told that's wrong. That's counter rotation. And now he's like, well, I'm a level 2 Cassie. That's what they told me. You are obviously full of shit. and and I'd be like, oh, okay, I get what you're trying to say, but counter rotation and upper lower body separation are two different things. Plus, you need to understand at a certain point that there's different tools for different jobs, and I can't apply the exact same technique in every turn. That would be totally crazy. I've developed a toolbox, and I think the mastery of the toolbox is when you can actually implement all these tools in a single run as the individual turn requires. Like I've had I watch a lot of my own videos to analyze myself. And I think it's very helpful for people to do that. And I've seen some footage where I'm basically up unweighting an entire run, and then suddenly things get hairy, and I throw in one down unweighted turn, totally out of nowhere. And I see that, and I'm like, what happened there? And it's like, oh yeah, I ran out of space. I didn't have time to actually come up and change edges and this and this. So I decided, without even thinking about it, I need to stay low and simply flick the board over and then extend through the turn, and then I'll make the turn. And it's like, wow, that's pretty cool to see, that, that all these tools that you are trying to teach through level 1, 2, 3, 4, that they eventually become your big picture, right? Like, you are now the fully certified craftsman, and you can handle the jigsaw and also the hammer and all, and you can build a house with that. That's awesome. But the level 2 instructor that has the information, well, counter rotation is wrong, without being told, hey, look, this is the part we're at right now, and some things will change, and some situations will demand different things. And then he doesn't proceed to become a level 3 or 4. Is going to run around with this idea of like, oh, I shouldn't open my upper body, I shouldn't counter rotate, I shouldn't do this and this and this, which are all things that are super important at the level 1 and 2 stage to teach steering with the feet, right? This whole like, no, stay still up here, this and this and this. It's all about teaching torsional twist of the board with your feet, and that's super important, and it needs to be done. And then there's a point, in my opinion, where more movement through the entire body needs to happen, because otherwise you're not gonna get to the final stage. So yeah, like, back to the question of beginner teaching, I think the experienced instructor is actually a way better beginner teacher. And it's unfortunate that the passion for that is kind of being killed by this talk of like, well, but you're level 3, you should be teaching, the free ride camp or whatever. It's like, no, man, like, you should take pride in teaching a beginner lesson and totally crush it, because you can actually show a level 1 that you can get this group to turn by lunch. And this level 1 is going to be inspired to be like, oh wow, like, that's how he did that, that's amazing, right? Like,
yeah, totally. And also reminding yourself where you come from and how you started this journey as an instructor, like transmitting your passion. And you mentioned it before, like convincing people to continue snowboarding and take on this journey, and that will also change their life. So that there's a lot of value in reminding yourself where it's all started every year when you teach beginners. And I have a question for you, Lars. What would you say, your one-liner, that's kind of what I'm looking for, like your one-liner, what would you say to an instructor who feel devalued to be assigned to teach a beginner lesson or a lower performance lesson?
I would try to make them understand the value they could have for that person's life. I like that. I think I would say like, hey man, this is like a beginner that you will be the person they will remember for the rest of their lives. I had my first snowboard lesson with this guy, and I was turning at 12 p.m. Like, I think, I'm such a softie. I'm crying all the time. I've cried in beginner lessons, like tears of joy.
Yeah.
Seeing someone, like I give you a great example. I had a guy in Switzerland, not even a beginner, slightly advanced beginner, an older guy older guy. I was in my early 30s. He was in his late 40s, mid 40s, late 40s, not that much older. Anyways, and the ski school calls me. It's like, hey, Lars, I have a private lesson. This sounds a bit crazy. The guy said he's very difficult and blah, blah, like this whole talk, right? And I'm like, oh, God, that sounds amazing. Okay, sign me up. So I'm meeting the client. I'm going to the bunny hill. He's like the nicest guy, very, very shy, very, very humble, and keeps telling me how terrible his first lessons were. And he just kept falling and this and this. And the instructor really struggled, and he feels so sorry for having put the instructor through this. And that he thinks that he's so difficult to work with. And that guy turned into, year after year, private lesson with Lars, booked before the season started. Like, that became my private client. Because
awesome.
we were within 2 hours, he was like, he didn't fall, he had confidence, and he felt like, oh my God, I'm in charge. I'm mastering this device here. This is amazing. And it showed me, because the stories he told me about the other instructor, which was also different resort. I don't know the person, and it all doesn't matter. But it just showed me again, wow, like exactly what I just said. At that point, I was already more experienced, and I made the right decisions. I read the guy correctly, and I chose the terrain accordingly, and I gave the correct hints that matched the terrain and his psychological, mental level, and suddenly he's turning in confidence. So being able to give someone such an experience, that is huge. Like, you become so important for this person. So that's what I think I would say to people who teach beginners and feel a bit bummed out about it.
We talk about this a lot kind of internally among the team here about this approach. It's cool to hear you say sort of the same thing, this approach of putting the least experienced instructors with the least experienced students. And, speaking of stats around the industry, one of the big challenges that the winter sports industry has is around retention. And it's like some depressing number, like 12% of people who try the sport ever come back to do it again. And it's like, it's a really dismal kind of figure. And so I think that's the big thing there, is that the most experienced instructor probably has the best chance of turning a newbie into a snowboarder. Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's cool. Yeah.
You said something important too earlier in that question, Lars, about the higher level instructor. Well, you should be teaching the performance camps and all this. Well, that's true, but they should also be teaching all the other steps along the way, and be really stoked about that, because you could affect someone's life in any of that kind of range of performance. And
I
make a
agree.
difference.
But it also
for
affects your own, like for me to be reminded of the very, very fundamentals, that increases my whole conscious experience of every single turn. Right? Like, because it's, if you have, like, I have this all the time with the channel, and being asked like about riding technique. I once rode with a guy randomly, found me on the hill, and we jumped on the chair, and he's like, oh, I'm following your channel. You mind doing a couple runs or whatever? And he's on this carving thing. He's like, I'm currently working on this and this. And he's telling me like some crazy stuff, like front leg extension through the heel turn and blah, blah, blah. And I watch him ride and I'm like, you can't even, like, I didn't say this, you can't even cleanly engage your edge. Like, you're sliding into the top of the turn, and now you're telling me something about front leg extension. Like, the very fundamental of a clean carve, nobody has actually told you, and you can't do it, and you're picking a wrong run, it's way too steep, and you're on a stiff board, and you're in silly, stupid positive angles, 40 something degrees. And I'm like, wow, like I could change this for you in an hour by just pulling you back 10 steps. So for you as an advanced instructor or rider for that matter, to have the full understanding of all the steps and of the fundamentals in particular, it just makes you a better snowboarder in every freaking turn.
Yeah, 100%. And I one of the things I've told instructors a lot too is I think back to the hundreds of hours I spent with one foot attached to my board, sliding around on the rope toe at COP back in the day. And you learn a lot about how a snowboard works and how it turns and how to control the board underneath you at those slow speeds on that flat terrain. And it almost becomes a bit of an extension of you, and you pick up, it feels kind of, at the time it's sort of happening without you realizing it, but you learn a lot about the fundamentals in those environments as an instructor. So you can take that out of that as well, right? Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Technique wise, like obviously, as you mentioned a couple times, like the carving scene in snowboarding is big. What do you make out of it? I mean, I think it's awesome what's going on in snowboarding right now. But what role do you sort of see this carving push playing in the sport right now?
I think it has two sides to it. The one side is, and that probably inspired the resurgence of carving, is the freestyle element. Right? Like, there's lots of guys out there that are mixing insane slopestyle skills with clean carving turns.
True.
And suddenly this is becoming, it seems like people always need this eye candy, crazy awesomeness in something to be inspired, you know? And that's great. If that inspires someone to learn edge control, sweet, that's awesome. And then there's the part that really is possibly the inspiration for my channel, which is the snowboarding demographic has obviously changed with the aging of the sport, right? And I think it currently is super interesting, because when you reflect on the age of the sport and what kind of people are currently snowboarding, you will find quite a few people in their 60s who are snowboarding. 20 years ago, that was not the case. They didn't exist, because the sport only started in the 80s, right? Like, so we are witnessing the evolution. Like, we are writing snowboarding history as we speak here. You know what I mean? Like, it's not in skiing. We've already had multiple generations of skiers. We've had multiple generations of Olympics and events and races and the era of Franz Klammer and the era of so-and-so. You know what I mean? In snowboarding, that's not a thing. The sport is very young in the grand scheme of things. So currently we have people like myself who are like, well, you know what? I'm closer to 50 than to 40. I'm like sending it in my way, but I'm not searching out 100-foot jumps and doing what snowboarding is portrayed as. But I'm still snowboarding, you know, like, it's not a kid sport anymore. As much as the industry is portraying an image of forever young, crazy graphics, spin to win, like there's a demographic in snowboarding that is simply not interested in that anymore, and they're just riding. And I feel like this idea of riding better, turning better, carving is is a topic for the older generation of snowboarders, at the same time as it is a topic for the younger inspired ones that are trying to emulate all the slopestyle aspects that are vastly coming out of Asia, I guess. So I think carving is actually pretty big right now, and it has a good place in the sport.
Yeah, we're seeing it in our world, on the instructor world, where, you know, one of the common sort of, I would call it a myth around snowboarding that seems to be changing is that snowboarders aren't interested in technique improvement or technique development, and you always hear it at the resort level, like, well, snowboarders just don't take lessons beyond the beginner level. Yeah. But I believe that's changing, and I think we're seeing that, and I think we're seeing evidence of that even in our instructor programs, where we have a lot of people who are coming out and taking a level 1 or a level 2 course because of the technical improvement side of it. They maybe no interest in being an instructor, but they want the technique improvement or the technical knowledge, right? The background knowledge. So I think that's changing as well.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I think like the generally speaking, the carving thing, I think generally what maybe we missed as instructors over the last 20 years, with freestyle being the dominant big thing in snowboarding, is to simply build an awareness for the fact, and I'm like, that's what it is to me. It's a fact. A snowboard, when you look at the shape and the design, the way that side cut and flex are playing together, a snowboard is literally designed to carve more so than it is designed to slide. Like when you take a snowboard and put a dead weight on it that you can tip over a little, and you give it some speed down a little fall line, let's just assume some immobile object was able, you know, remotely to tip the board on edge. The board would carve. The board would not slide. So to me, the idea of like, oh, Lars is a carver is almost kind of funny, because I'm like, no, I'm just trying to get from A to B in the best way possible. And sometimes that is not carving, but because it's not the best way. But to ride a clean turn on a snowboard is literally what that thing is designed to do. So why would I not promote that this is a part of what everybody should learn? That's just crazy.
You started to touch on it a little bit, like open hips versus rotation. Where is the balance in your mind?
I think when you talk about rotation, you also need to talk about stance angles. And I feel like that connection is quickly forgotten among instructors, because we are so focused on like technique, that we kind of skip this idea of like, whoa, wait a minute. What is actually the neutral position? Because to define rotation, I first need to define the neutral position, right? Like if you put someone on a board with race angles, alpine angles, 60 degrees, and you just look at the hips from your standpoint, you'll be like, well, look how much this guy is rotating. Well, that's why he can heel turn. And he's actually not rotating at all.
Just standing neutral.
Yeah, totally. And in my opinion, I find this is actually funny. You guys, maybe all of you know him. I know from yesterday, I know that Jeff knows him. I had a 2-hour conversation with John Shelley yesterday.
Yes, we all know John. Yeah,
that happened totally randomly, and we finally got on the phone. We only first time talked yesterday, and he had an interesting thing to say that I agree with, but I never thought about. He mentioned speed, as in the faster you ride and the more aggressively you ride, the more advantageous it is to remain in a more neutral position, as in with less rotation. Because from that position, of course, neutral means I can go anywhere, right? And neutral means stable, because all my joints are neutral and I'm not actually twisting them, so I have optimal muscle use because it's neutral, right? I'm not compensating for anything. And I agree with that. I think when you think of turning, you need to go back to considering stance angles and also desired outcomes. I can't, when I'm on a steeper pitch, toe side is anyway so different because of our lovely ankle joint that loves to bend forwards. but heel side is more important and maybe more understandable for people. If I'm on a steeper pitch where speed control becomes more important, obviously, right? And I need to bring my board to bloody turn early, ideally above the fall line. And I want to get that thing around. And I try to do that without rotation into the turn. That's going to be very, very difficult. Like I want to argue you need to leave neutral and turn into the turn, because that rotation that you are, like that pull that you are initiating from above, also pulls the board around. And you have to, because heel side is already so much more difficult. And once you pick up speed, you're gone. So you got to do something at the top of the turn to actually avoid that your fall line ride becomes too long and too fast. And therefore, because on the toe side, you can achieve that through plane angulation, right? You just bam, knees down, board turns, sweet. And on heel side, if you envision you go across the hill and now you just squat backwards, well, good luck with that. It's too much mass down the hill too early, but you need to get on edge that early. So it's much easier to get on edge that early when your hips are actually a bit forward and you can move across the board laterally rather than just falling backwards. Where on a toe side, you can technically just fall forward, not fall, but tilt the board through ankles and knees. It's probably going to work. Yeah. So I think, and that goes back then to your stance angles, the more posy you are already, on the front foot at least, the less of this rotation you're going to need. So I find rotation versus not rotation is very situational, and it's less a topic that should be aiming for right or wrong, but more of a topic for outcomes-based conversation. Like, what are you aiming for?
What are you trying to get done?
Yeah.
I like that. Thanks.
Super interesting take on something that we talk about a lot. And this is changing.
Hot topic. Yeah, exactly.
Totally. This is a bit of a departure from what we were talking about, but I kind of feel like it weaves its way in there with respect to tuning your equipment. I know it's a passionate topic for you. And I wonder if your opinion on, do people forget about tuning and its importance on performance?
Oh, 100%. Like I find snowboard tuning is not only forgotten, but also totally misunderstood. As in, like, so snowboarding has a strong freestyle aspect, and there's of course also a strong rails aspect. And of course you don't want crazy sharp edges on rails. That just makes sense. And maybe this is part of why snowboarders, in the grand scheme of things, never consider edge tuning, because it's like, well, it's this thing that I'm banging around and I'm jumping on boxes and rails anyways, and like edges, schmedges, who cares? But really, the tune of a board determines how, like, if for the mountain bikers, it's almost like buying a $12,000 bike, but not setting up the suspension.
Right.
Like, like the suspension of a mountain bike determines vastly how that thing feels. And if that's not set up for your weight, then that's not going to feel as good as it could. And with a snowboard, we have two edges. We have a base edge and we have a side edge, right? And those two things have two different jobs. And that's not, people just talk about sharp edges. It's not that simple. Like, you can have sharp edges, but a forgiving ride. Which is like, no, that what? What do you mean? Because people don't explain base bevel, right? Like, I could make a board for you that I bevel 3 degrees which makes it really forgiving and slidey. Like that's like borderline a park tune. But then I put like an 85-degree side edge on it, like a ski race edge. And that gives you an edge that is actually sharp, but engages really late. And if you understand that, if you have the ability to handle that, it's because what you need to do is when you actually want to make performance turns on a board like this, is you have to be quite on point with your edge engagement. You have to maybe even exaggerate a little, like bam, tip it over, because the board doesn't want to engage that quickly, right? Because of that high bevel. But you still would have a performance edge. So the idea of I don't need to tune because I don't want my board to be grippy or like catchy, that's just a bad idea. Like you can have both. And I had my mind blown. I got into tuning very early, again due to this World Cup guy that was constantly tuning his boards, and I found that fascinating. Like those things were weapons. And I found it fascinating, and he explained why that makes a difference. And so I got pretty hooked on this very early. And when you tune your own boards on the regular, you forget about how good that is because it's just normal to you. And I had my mind blown once when I taught a lesson to a teenager who was very, very good and who wanted to get into carving. This is also Switzerland. And he was on a rental. And I'm watching it and I'm like, man, like this makes no sense. He's in a good position. He should have more grip. This is just odd. And then eventually I was like, you know what? Let's swap boards for a run. And I was terrified. Like I was literally, I started turning and was like, holy shit. Like whoa. Like I just didn't have feedback. The board did not give me any feedback. It was just awkwardly semi doing something that I didn't want it to do to that degree. And to me, that was like a massive wake up. I instantly felt the edges and was like, dude, you got to go to the rental. This is totally unacceptable. And to me, that was like, okay, I'm on the right track here. I keep tuning.
Oh, that's cool. I think you said something really important there where you can have a board that's set up to ride in the park, but you can also lay an edge down. And in our higher level courses, like our level 3 and 4 course on exams, we'll run from doing, large radius turns, carving down a black pitch, and then to the park, and we need to go sideways on a box. So you can, and we're doing that on the same board. So you're absolutely right. You can tune for both and get performance in both areas. So that was kind of cool to hear your take on that. And more on tuning. I sort of learned this recently. I've seen some of your videos about side cut tuning equipment.
Yeah.
And we don't really have commercials on the show, but I thought it would be a fun spot for you to give a little plug there. Tell us a little bit about side cut.
That's cool. First of all, the thing that your members should know is that Sidecut offer a pro deal to Kasi. And that is a huge opportunity for your members to actually get proper gear at a pretty reasonable price that they will have for a lifetime. Like my file guides, I'm tuning professionally, as in I tune people's boards as well. I have like this tiny little tuning business, but also tune my own boards. And my file guides are probably like 5 years old and tune like, I don't know, hundreds of boards. And there's no need to replace a file guide. Like even if you lose a part, that the file guides have parts that can be replaced, just the part without the whole thing. And all you need to replace every now and then is a file and a diamond stone. And the side cut diamond stones are first of all, they're pretty environmentally friendly, but also save your wallet a little because they come as a CNC machined aluminum plate that carries a self-adhesive diamond sheet. So when your diamond sheet wears out, you only buy a new sheet. And if you compare that price-wise like from, let's say, Swix or something, they would give you a diamond stone on a piece of plastic, which needs to be thrown out altogether. And they're about $55-$60. And the side cut thing, I think, is $70 first purchase. But the diamond sheet is only, I think, 38 or 35, something like this. So in the long run, you know, a CNC machined aluminum plate has no flex and is anyways the smarter way to go. It's very precise. But then also like a self-adhesive diamond sheet is just, less waste, cheaper. So all this stuff, you'll be tuning with this literally forever. And that is a part in snowboarding that it's kind of mind-blowing. Like as a snowboarder, if you set out to find a snowboard brand that produces good tools, it doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
Like Dakine, One Ball J, and then there was Bakoda or something a few years back.
Yeah.
They all had the same file guide. They all had the same little piece of plastic with a tiny little file. The file can be flipped. The guide can be flipped between 90 and 88 degrees. And off you go. You cannot insert a different file. You cannot insert a diamond stone. The thing is inaccurate. It's $20. It's shitty to work with. And the only company that ever did this is when Burton actually did Red, the Red brand, that the first Burton helmets all ran under Red, and then all their tuning tools and storm pads and stuff all ran under Red. And they had really good proper file guides, like an adjustable guide, solid metal with a steel glide plate. The file was clampable, and that's all gone because the companies realized there's no market. And why is there no market? Because snowboarders don't care about tuning. And I think with the resurgence of carving, this is hopefully changing. It's such a pleasure to be in charge of how your board rides by keeping it tuned. It's great.
Well, I care about tuning and I do it a lot.
Me too.
Well, Jen and I ride in the East. It's a pretty important skill to have is knowing how to keep your board tuned and sharp. I didn't realize that we had access to side cut tuning tools as a pro deal. So we'll have to talk offline about connecting that to our back end. That would be rad.
It's a Whistler-based company, so that's kind of cool for Canadian instructors. And I would highly recommend getting like an essential kit of files, diamonds, and a file guide in the desired angle. It's really, really good stuff, and it will last a long time. And getting pro deal on it is fantastic.
Plugging along here, one of the things we try to do in this podcast is to sort of like pepper in some kind of like short response, kind of fun questions. And among our staff team here, among the internal staff team, one of the things we're always doing is trying to kind of share stuff that we've learned. And it might be like really boring office-based stuff, or it might be snowboard-related stuff. But the question that we often put to each other is, what's something that maybe you learned in the last I was going to say week, but that seems kind of unfair, but maybe what's something you learned this past season that you think someone else should steal, whether it be a technical piece, like a technical nugget or a tuning nugget or an equipment thing, or even just a life skill. Could be anything.
That somebody else should steal. How do you mean that? Like
something that impacted you in such a way that you think everybody should take it.
Oh, I see. I think what we should do, since we just spoke of tuning and carving and, the East Coast conditions, I think what I learned this season is to truly embrace and appreciate shitty conditions.
Yeah, there was a lot of snowboarders learning that lesson this year.
Because
out west here anyway. Yeah.
What happened after fairly long periods of variable and highly inconsistent conditions, you get the sprinkle of like snow and a good day, and you're riding, and I had days where I was like, oh my God, I'm Superman.
Yeah, this is great. Yeah,
when you actually break through this threshold because it's a bit of a ballsy thing to tip a board on edge when it's actually icy, as you know from the East Coast. When you actually get your mind to that and you go like, man, come on, my edges are tuned. I know somewhat well what I'm doing. Let's see whether I can't get a bit of grip here. When you it's so scary because we don't have a second ski and a pole, right? It's always full commitment. And and when you break through that and you manage a couple turns and then it gets better and then it's a good day, you are invincible. Like you learn so much because there's zero room for error when conditions are really firm. You need to be stacked so well and timing needs to be so on point that you only realize later how sloppy you can ride when conditions are good.
Yeah, that's actually what I say to a lot of people that I train here in Tremblant or out east in general. Like if you can get really good on those conditions, just everything else just gonna seem so easy. If you can carve on this pitch with those conditions, with those amount of piles of golf balls everywhere, that's gonna make your life easier and smooth snow. Or
that wasn't a short answer.
No, that's okay.
No, that's okay.
It's all good.
We like it.
Good. I love that answer.
Would you rather nerd out on gear or technique?
I feel like the two are often inseparable. I think there's always some part eventually where it like bridges into the other, because it's not all the gear, but it's also not, well, it's mostly technique, but some things work better on certain gear and in certain angles, stance angles or whatever. So I don't know. I feel like to me that's a bit of a blur. I think I prefer the nerding out on technique because I feel like there's potentially more for me to learn in that area.
Okay, solid answer.
Oh.
And the last of our palate cleanser reset questions here. And we like to keep things positive, but I thought this would be kind of a fun one with the number of days you have on snow every year. Pet peeve on the hill.
Pet peeve on the hill. Oh, God. Oh, God, that's a tough one. That's a really tough one.
I know I'm not allowed to answer, but while you're thinking, I'm going to throw mine out in it. It's the people that enter the lift line and go like 10th of the way into the lift line and then stop. That's mine. That's mine.
Yeah, right. And wait for the gang.
And wait for their friends. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Excellent. Oh, pet peeve. This is really, really difficult. I'm kind of in my own zone, you know. I just get to the hill, I get on the lift, I ride, I go home. Like it's more like a conditions thing almost, you know, like when Fernie is such a tricky mountain with AVI conditions to be handled and controlled, and they would open this side and then they work on the other side, and some days you're constantly in the wrong spot. That gets insanely frustrating. You are chasing the powder and you just can't get there before the crowds because you're always in the wrong spot.
Right.
Not really a pet peeve maybe, but yeah, that's annoying.
Yeah.
Well, I have to say I had to Google pet peeve. Thank you for that.
That's cool. Nice.
We're always giving Jen new expressions in her second language. She keeps a list. It's awesome.
Exactly.
Peeve.
Growing. Keep the list growing.
Cool. Well, we're jumping here to the backside of our episode here. We're on the home stretch. And just changing gears again. I feel like kind of that's my role here as the captain of the ship, is to constantly be changing gears. So your experience building out your YouTube channel and your social following, I'm just kind of interested on how it got to where it's at, because you have quite a few followers to the point where people see you on the hill and say, hey, I follow you, like let's go take a lap together. What's that journey been like?
Well, first of all, that wasn't the goal. First of all, that was, I never thought of numbers or any defined goal really. The idea for the channel is not that new. So in the board shop that I used to work in, I was the hard goods buyer, and I was also the main tuner. And I guess I was in those roles because I was also the gear nerd. And I think I had a good understanding of the brands that we carried and their offering, and our mountain and our needs in Fernie, to actually come up with a good buy for the shop. Like, you want to buy what you can sell, and otherwise you are failing. and of course, making those decisions is much easier when you're actually working with customers. So I wasn't like some background guy. I was working with customers a lot. And of course, over years, you've been asked just about every question, and sometimes you didn't have an answer, and sometimes you had to read up on things or whatever. So over the years, I wrote a ton of little PDF documents. I once wrote for a ski school in Switzerland. I wrote an entire thing when this whole rocker camber thing went off and all those hybrid shapes came out. I wrote an entire thing and did a presentation for them on those shapes and what they do and who they are for. And, like, I have a quite personal take on this idea of rocker is great for beginners because it's easy to turn. I think that's utter BS. Because it forgets the other part of a beginner, which is they're not confident and they need stability. And a full rocker board does not offer stability. So yeah, it's easy to turn, but it's also super skiddy, and you don't build confidence on a device that feels like you don't have control because it always wants to turn.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I feel like that was totally ignored in the beginning of this discussion. So I wrote this thing and I did a presentation on it and blah, blah. And I realized, like, some 20 years ago or some 15 years ago, man, like, I really like trying to understand snowboarding as a whole. Like, how does the gear relate to the riding? And I do like talking about it, because what I realized is that nobody's talking about it. And that whenever I do talk about it, people would be like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. And I'd be like, how did you not ever think about this? Right? Because that's kind of how I'm wired. Like, this why thing that I said in the beginning, right? Like, it just happens in my brain, this desire to figure out, like, okay, well, what does this really do? Like, I have literally in an episode on rocker camber, I'm talking about what rocker actually does when it's put on edge. I have never found anyone talk about this. Not one single outlet anywhere. They only ever talk about flat base. Here, look at pivots. They never talk about what happens to the rocker when it is tilted on edge. It becomes the side cut, right? Eventually.
Right.
And
right.
So you're not loading it, right? So that bend suddenly matches the side cut. And at that point, you are in the middle of a turn and there's zero tension in your board. Because the two match at a certain point. Does that make sense?
Right.
So, and I find that is a huge thing. It's a huge thing to perceive. Like, you would know this when you ride a full rocker or a full camber. And then from there on, you realize, okay, there's a gray zone. There's lots of stuff in between here. What does this all do? So I became this guy in the shop that wrote all these documents so that we as a team can actually give proper advice, instead of just being like, this is Travis' board, sick graphic this year, definitely get on the 57. It's like these empty snowboard retail phrases about graphics and the sickest, coolest thing. I got so bored of that, that I was, and the feedback was constantly, wow, thank you so much. Nobody has ever told me this. And by the time the snowboard shop relationship ended, I basically had the script for my channel on my computer. Like, all these PDFs and topics that I had touched on, that was like 25 videos right there. And I was a bit worried about doing that because stepping in front of a camera is a bit weird. But I thought, you know what, like, I'm going to do this because I think there's a value. And also I want to offer something for that snowboarder that is not interested anymore in that superficial, it's all just a fun toy kind of aspect. Like people that are a little bit older, that are seeking out something else in their daily snowboarding experience. So I touched on boot fit and all these things that I feel like haven't been talked about enough. And then things just evolved. Like it became, I don't know, like I suddenly, like I'm reading, you know, obviously you get curious, and I've Googled my channel name and like to see like, okay, what are people actually saying? So suddenly I'm realizing, holy shit, like in some big snowboard forums, they're discussing my videos. This is crazy. And I realized that I have an impact. And of course, that's great, but it's also a lot of pressure because there's only so much you can talk about. And I don't like doing something twice. Like I can't make a boot fit video that is better. You know, it's done.
Yeah.
So there's pressure for sure. But yeah, there was no motivation or desire to be famous or to have any kind of big following. The idea was literally driven by the positive feedback I had gotten in the shop and how much satisfaction that was for me to see someone be like, oh my God, that makes so much sense. I'm buying this snowboard. You know, and then see them on the hill and they're like, yeah, it's amazing. You're like, ah, oh, awesome.
Yeah, that's good.
Cool. You did it. You started it for the right reason. And I think that's pretty rad. I'm curious about the name, Justaride. It's one word, or is it?
It is one word, and that was more of a thing of like, I just make it one word rather than just a ride. There's no reason why it's one word. The name, however, it was my first email address, justaride@gmx.de, and I to the day have this address. And this came about, I was kind of put on the spot. I suddenly needed an email address. And I studied music. I'm a professional musician, actually. I went to an arts conservatory for drumming. And that was a bit of a rough time because it's a psychological stretch to study an art form. It's quite like, it's so much pressure. It's crazy. So anyways, I'm sitting there and I'm put on the spot. I needed this address. And I had, in my desperation of what I'm going to do with my life and whether the study is actually the right thing for me or not, I had come across a random talk by, was it Bill Burr or something, like some comedian? When you Google Bill Burr Justaride, you will find something where he's just talking about like, hey man, it's just a ride. Like, don't overthink it. You know, like nobody knows what they're doing. Nobody has figured it out. It's just a ride. And then there's another talk by Alan Watts, English philosopher. For the people who don't know him, definitely a must listen to. That is about. This is actually really interesting. That is about the drive that we all have to become successful or whatever, connected to some form of monetary, like success as well, like becoming rich or having enough money or whatever, and the disconnect that quite often happens on that journey from your passions, but the reflection on the truly successful people actually being passionate about what they do, hence what they do is not really work to them. They actually became masters at something that might be irrelevant or trivial or whatever, but because they became masters, they are suddenly being paid well because there's nobody else like them. And you cannot get there without the passion. You can't be stoked on money just because, it's numbers on a screen, but you're actually not really interested in how the stock market works, and suddenly you are a genius in it. That's not going to work. Like, you got to be obsessed with something, and this 10,000 hour rule, that's a thing. Like the amount I still have days or stretches where there's not a run that I'm completing on the hill that I didn't actually think of what I was doing. Like I'm constantly like trying to figure something out even better or whatever. And this obsession with something is kind of what it takes to become a master at something. I'm not saying that I am one, but you get better as you go, and then suddenly you get paid, and suddenly maybe you are successful, as in, oh, there's 20,000 subscribers on a channel, and at the end of the day, it's just a ride. Like you just don't think about it. Don't listen to your mom who said, but you need to be a dentist and make a lot of money. If you don't care about teeth, don't become a bloody dentist. Like following your heart and your true passion is really the way to become a master at something. And becoming a master at something is also then the way to actually be potentially financially successful. So it's just a ride. Like,
just a ride.
That's cool.
And you must get some satisfaction out of the conversation that comes with having a following like that. And you get a lot of comments on your YouTube and your Instagram when you post videos. What's your sort of approach to all that engagement? And do you see more on one channel or the other, or is it different from YouTube to Instagram?
Yeah, Instagram is much more superficial. Like, oh yeah, sick clip, done, right? And then on YouTube, on a 40-minute on a 59-minute edge tuning epic that I did a few years ago, of course you get big stretches of comments and exchanging ideas, and it's cool. Like sometimes people pitch in with something that actually helped me, right? Like I'm not the be all and end all of all of this by any means. So some people have brought some ideas to the table that I had never thought of regarding waxing or whatever. And I'm like, hey man, that makes way more sense. Thanks for that. Generally speaking, I'm taking that very seriously. YouTube gives you these summaries once a year, what happened over the year. And last year I had this thing, and one of the stats was, you answered 2,600 something comments. And I'm like, oh, now I know why I don't have any time. There's not. Oh, I think currently there's actually one comment that I have not answered, but that might be the only comment on my entire channel that I have not reacted to. Like sometimes something doesn't require an answer. It's not a question. It's just a nice statement or whatever. And I just click on the like thing because I find it important. Like when I comment on, Rob's latest whatever clip, and I'm saying something in particular, when I'm saying something nice, I would love for you to click on the like thing just so I know, hey, you actually read that.
Yeah, totally. That's important.
There's nothing else in it. It's just the idea of like, oh, cool, you actually read that. And I know from myself, like I've reached out to people that I look up to, how rewarding that is, how nice that is when you see, hey, that guy actually read my comment. Wow, that's cool. So I'm taking that very seriously, and and in particular with questions, I reply to everything. And sometimes it's very difficult because some people, they're not very reflected, and also they don't watch the whole video but shoot with questions after 2 minutes that are all answered in the video. And it's, it pushes my patience because it takes so much time to do this, and I do it so thoroughly, and I apply so much nuance to all these subjects because there's hardly anything in our lives that is black or white. And in snowboarding in particular, geez, like there's so many, oh, this is the tribe that believes in that. That's the tribe that believes in that. And it's just nonsense, right? Like there's nuance everywhere. And I'm trying to be so aware of that it's frustrating when somebody doesn't actually watch the whole thing and just fires off a million questions. And you're like, Jesus Christ, just watch the video. Like, it's obviously not a topic that
It's all
can
there.
be,
Yeah.
it can't be handled in a minute on TikTok. That's why my content is 20 minutes, right? So that's the tough part. But generally speaking, yeah, I enjoy that people find my stuff helpful. And when they have further questions, I think that's fine and it's good.
That's rad. I mean, Lars, you are a snowboarder's snowboarder. It's one
Am
thing
I?
to click the like
Nice.
button for the algorithm, right?
Yeah, that too.
But it's
Yeah.
another thing to do it because you want to show that you care that people are engaging with your content, and you're getting just as much out of the content, like you said, as you're putting out, right, in the comments. And so I think that's a really important give and take that the online community in snowboarding has, and of course in any other online community. But it's kind of cool to hear you elaborate on that. Moving into our next topic, we sort of talked about this a little bit already. Snowboarding has evolved. It started out as like a punk teen thing, and now here we are in our 40s teaching our kids how to snowboard. Like, my kids never set foot on skis, and I don't say that as a point of pride. It's just that was available, and I could do that with the equipment advances and things like that. And also, with this much time in the industry, we've seen all of us watched snowboarding go from like the really cool thing to there's a bit of a decline in the early 2000s, and we saved skiing, but we don't need to talk about that. And then it's gone up and down, right, over the years in popularity. And so there's been a lot of ebbs and flows in our sport that we've all seen. And it's been cool to be like on the forefront of seeing all that happen. And I just kind of be curious to hear your take as we come to the close of our episode here on where we're at in that curve of ebbs and flows currently with snowboarding.
I think it's actually like a golden time, because the product offering is, as much as I still see so much improvement, don't get me started. The product offering is as colorful as it could be. And what I mean with that is not actually colorful, but the fact that a brand like Korua can exist with fully directional shapes only, a brand like Stranda can exist, a brand like, I don't know, like even the race inspired brands that come from race, like Donek or whatever, that primarily come from racing, they've flared out into other areas and make great snowboards as well. Like, there's so much going on where you're like, oh wow, we actually have choices. And then the thing of, like, as much as I'm not a friend of a volume shifted board or the trend volume shifted board, I think snowboard width serves a purpose and has an outcome, and we can't just jump on a trend that is related to size. Size is size. It's not a trend. It fits you or it doesn't fit you. So it's just so silly. But it brought along that finally people with a size 13 foot can actually buy a snowboard, which, to be honest, for 35 years wasn't really possible.
Yeah.
So, like, suddenly we have all kinds of width, we have all kinds of length, we have directional, we have twins. You can do whatever the heck you want on a snowboard, and you will find someone online talking about it. So we have role models for everything. We have the Olympics, we have crazy carving from Korea or God knows what, and like, I'm doing what I'm doing. Like, there's so much stuff to be inspired, and the gear is available. The only thing that of course sucks is that the prices of lift passes is making things very, very inaccessible. I don't think that snow sports are an inclusive sport, as much as we are trying our best on a different level, inclusivity as in whatever, gender or whatever it is. But inclusiveness at the very root of the word, can everybody take part? No. Like, it's bloody expensive, and that's a shame, but we can't change that. I think snowboarding is at in an amazing place, also due to the fact that the age group that is participating is so big now. Like we are right now witnessing the maturing of a sport into something that, you know what I like about skiing? Like, I don't think we can learn all that much from skiers on the riding side, to be honest. I think they can learn more from us. And I'm not saying that in any kind of arrogance or whatever, but our commitment to a turn is so much greater. Like on one edge, no poles, no second leg to quickly adjust something. The precision required at a high level of snowboarding, I think, is higher. So regardless, that's a weird sidetrack here. But what we can learn from skiers is, look at the ski industry. You can walk into a shop in Ontario and find atomic slalom skis, and they probably don't have quite that many powder skis. And then you come to Whistler and they throw all the powder skis at you. And no matter where you go, you're a skier, you're part of it, you're accepted, you're welcome. Nobody puts a label on you for being kooky because you're riding a narrow slalom ski. Like, skiing has just chilled the heck out. Like, they're just, yeah, we're all skiing. Yeah, I'm a freestyler. Yeah, I ride park. Oh, I ride big mountain. Oh, I used to race. I still race. Snowboarding, no such thing. Like, you still look funny at someone that shows up in hard boots. And I just, or the subject being, oh, should we maybe eliminate GS from the Olympics? I just feel like, really? That is such a step backwards. Like, we are at a point where we should really take this one more step to mellow the heck out and be like, nice, snowboarding,
it's all good.
Comes in all facets, and it's all good.
I love it. I love what you just said.
I often, a similar kind of example or reference, I often look at the mountain bike world, or maybe the cycling world in general, but mountain biking in general has done a great job of, I think, maintaining accessibility and being open to, like, if you grab a mountain bike magazine off the rack in the grocery store, you know, one page will have a picture of a massive cliff drop, and then the next page will have a picture of a beautiful trail. Right. And it's not the same in snowboarding. Like you said, we haven't done a great job in snowboarding of creating that environment where people feel like they can be a snowboarder in whatever boots or board they want to do it on. Yeah. So 100%. I agree with you on that one.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, Lars, I kind of know what's next for you, but there's a couple of things that there's probably more, but there's a couple of things that I thought were kind of interesting that I've seen come through your channels recently. You got a new film coming out in the fall, and you're going to be snowboarding in the Andes this summer. So maybe a couple of quick words on what's going on there as we round out the episode.
Yeah, the Andes thing is awesome. It's called Carving the Andes. That's the name you would find it under on Instagram, or even carvingtheandes.com. I do believe that there's still spots available. It's 3 weeks worth of carving. The first week is hard boot carving with two people that are Matt Larson and Dave Redman, American guys, know what they're doing. Like, amazing to watch. So it's quite specific, and I think that's great. Speaking of, snowboarding has all kinds of faces, and we should all appreciate it. That they actually put together a hard boot clinic. I think that's wicked. And then the week 2 and 3 is going to be like my camp. That is soft boot carving, and it's basically aiming at, like, you can't be a beginner, but you don't have to be a high-level carver either. Like, if you can get a board on edge and generally keep up, like, you know, you're not like sliding and scared of the run or whatever, but you're generally, like, you know, a decent rider, and you can use your edges. You don't need to be an expert carver by any means. Then yeah, that's a camp you can sign up for and ride with me and learn a bit. It's cool. And that's in August. And it's 2 weeks, 9th to 16th and 16th to 22nd, something like this. yeah, it's going to be a great time. I'm stoked. I've never been to Chile ever, and snowboarding in summer is, it's the dream.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds
speaking of
amazing. I want to come down.
Yeah, you should. Speaking of the film thing, like I did this thing like last fall, released a clip, 4.5 minutes or whatever, called Schmorderoy, filmed with a guy, Liam Hall from Sun Peaks. Liam used to film, what's the name of the crew? That's pretty cool, like park stuff. He used to film park and rail stuff. What's the name of the crew? You find this online. They had sponsors, 32 and stands and all kinds of stuff. It was pretty cool.
Nice.
Damn, blanking. But he reached out to me 2 years ago or something saying, hey man, like, I love what you're doing. I want to make a film with you. And I was blown away that this would ever happen. And this is all just for fun. Like, we weren't aiming to make any money with this or whatever. He just has the same passion that I have and happens to be an absolute wizard on the camera and in editing. So we set out to film a clip, and that is Schmorderoy. And then this year, like, he reached out again. I was like, hey, we got to keep going with this. You know that, right? And I'm like, okay, I guess. So we hooked up again, and we wanted to tell a bit more of a story. The last thing was just riding and 4.5 minutes. The title came, by the way, from the fact that we encountered lots of shmoo and afternoon bumps. And I said, you know what? It is what it is. We're going to show that you don't need pristine corduroy to carve a snowboard. That's actually more appealing because we only ever see carving in pristine conditions. And I think it's cool to put out that message of like, hey man, look, you know, it's possible. So this time we wanted to talk a little bit about surf style carving or whatever that means. To me, it means using my terrain and making the most of it and reading the terrain like a surfer has to adapt to the motion of the water. Like a wave doesn't stay constant and static, right? So we did a full clip, and we had shitty conditions again for 2 days. And I was sick as a dog. I had a fever for the full 4 days, like shivering at night and like really shitty. And this turned into the story, because the story turned in an interview, turned pretty serious, because it basically touched on my desire to perfect everything, which is of course a state that is very difficult to be in or to live with. So here's me being sick, but still riding and being like, no, we're here now, we're doing this. And like battling through this physical thing while also, again, 2 days, like it rained on us literally, and we still filmed. And like the whole thing turned into this thing of like, man, snowboarding means so much to me, plus this drive for perfection. That's pretty intense, you know? So there's this moment of like talking about things that drive me or whatever. And it's a big up and down, like it's an emotional roller coaster over 12 minutes. I don't want to give away too much. We crashed and it's all on film. It's epic. I watched the final edit and I cried again, Lars crying. Yeah, I was like blown away. He did such an amazing job. He busted out 200mm lens for one shot and went to the other side in Sun Peaks, went up the north side, and I rode the other side, and we communicated on phones to make it happen, where I have to be, when, and it's just like, it's pretty bloody awesome. I'm very stoked. And it's gonna, the name so far, I can give that away, is It's What You Make It. Because that's what it is. It's what you make it.
Nice.
Surf style carving. It's what you make it.
Just a ride.
Yeah, and I'm stoked. This will come probably end of October.
Right on. Well, thanks
Looking
for
forward to
sharing those behind the scenes notes on what's going on there. I'm definitely looking forward to watching that when it comes out. It's been an incredible episode. Thanks so much, Lars, for sharing all of your knowledge and stories with us. That was really entertaining and insightful. To our listeners, thanks again for tuning in. Love having you here to listen to our stories behind the curtains at Cassie and beyond. Be sure to leave us a review, subscribe to the channel. We'd love to have you come along with us on the journey. If there's anything that you want to discuss, please do email us any guest suggestions, topic suggestions. We would love to hear from you, and we will answer. podcast@cassie-acms.com. And we'll see you again in 2 weeks for our next episode. Thanks again, Lars. Thanks, Jen.
Thanks
Thank you
so
very
much
much.
for having me, guys.
Have a
Take care,
good summer.
everyone.
Enjoy Chile.
Will do.